the most amazing stats is the Chili Bowl thing. 5-time winner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That to me is amazing because I understand how hard that race is to win. The victory there is making the A-main.
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, this one won 4 in a row.
Is that the car?
Yeah, with Kevin.
Kevin. Wow. And then you won 5. Your last victory, I think, there was 2009,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And you would have been like mid-50s then, wouldn't you, when you won? Mm-hmm. So you're the oldest Chili Bowl winner then, yeah?
Yeah.
Gotta be.
I would think so.
That's a young kid sport there,
Yeah.
the Chili Bowl.
Well, it seems to be anymore.
Yeah, yeah. How on earth did you win that thing 5 times? I mean,
I just always felt like the sprint car guys and stuff, and just me in general, that I could adapt to anything. It was just easy. I didn't come in there and people said, well, how do you do so good in the midget? I said, well, I don't drive them very much, and I don't have any bad midget habits.
I like that. Whoa, wait a minute. You got a pilot's license?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Is it still current?
It wouldn't take much to be current.
Sure.
I just haven't had the chance. I mean, I had a Cessna Centurion for about 7 years back in 80 through to like 87.
Is that a single engine or?
It's a single engine. It's the bigger one with the variable pitch prop and the retractable gear.
Did you own your own plane?
Yes.
You did. Wow. I didn't know that about you. That's super interesting. But as you've gotten on in your career, do you find yourself taking less chances and not putting yourself in 3 wide places that you maybe ought not to be, or?
Well, it just depends. I mean, you're the whole time you're calculating where to be, what to do, and how far to go. You know, so I think it's still the same. I mean, you know, maybe you get a little older, you get a little smarter, but you know, it used to be a little easier, I think. But now they got these guys that are so young, and they just want to go and
if they wreck one, someone just pull another one off the shelf.
Yep. Yeah. They go get on their phone.
And they don't have to fix it.
Yeah, play video games until they're ready to go again.
I'm well aware that Sammy Swindell, if he crashed, he had to fix his car. So
Yep.
You built that?
Yeah, I was the first one that put a box on the back of them like that.
Really? You were the first in a lot of things, innovation-wise. That's something else I want to dig in. But you were the first to put a box on the back of a...
Well, this is a Kawasaki Mule.
Okay.
That's what they call it.
Got it.
But,
And so you have that with you at the Chili Bowl?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but...
Ooh, that's cool. Figures would be Snap-on the best. That's sweet. Got the jack right underneath the seat. Very nice. That's cool. And what about this midget here? Is this...
This is the one I drive.
This is the one you drive. Okay. Got it. I gotta go back to the beginning. There's a cool story. You grew up in... I guess your dad bought an old church or something? And it became your home?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the deal?
Yeah.
And that would have been 1960s?
Yep.
So you kind of grew up in a church. You guys went to church every day.
Yeah. The front part of it was probably built in the late 1800s.
Wow.
And then the back part was a lot newer. And it was big. So we had a big house that we made a nice big garage where they would have the service at. We just took the floor out and put concrete in
and made it the garage.
Made it the garage.
And do you have some good memories growing up with your brothers and sisters in that home? I mean, that just sounds so cool, a renovated church to me.
Yeah.
I love the whole idea.
Yeah, it was different. I mean, there wasn't a lot of...
It's probably all the norm for you.
Yeah, we were kind of out in the country, so sort of. I mean, there wasn't a lot of friends right around there.
Yeah.
There was some, you know, there's 4 or 5 guys. We'd do some stuff off and on.
Yeah. That's super interesting.
You just could walk down the street at the end and go hunting, or the people behind us had a lot of horses, so
Sure, it was all wide open then, and not the church is gone, right, or the home.
Yes.
It's demolished. It's gone. It's all developed out there now, or
Yeah, it's been at least 25 years
since
ago.
it's been gone.
Right.
Where was that church? What
It was
in Memphis proper, or
no, it was north of Memphis,
okay?
right off Highway 51 there.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little kind of community there they call Woodstock.
Oh, okay. Now, when you were born in '55, and that is the year your father started racing as well,
Yeah.
right in there.
Yeah, he started that same year.
You knew nothing else but racing.
Yeah.
I mean, you were born into it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still there in a big way. All these years later, your father, was he your hero growing up? I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
did you look up to him as a bigger than life figure, like we often do our dads? But he was a race car driver. That's different.
Right. Yeah. I know there was the one year there, he won 56 of 64 races.
Wow. Was that Riverside Speedway?
Well, they raced a bunch of different places,
Okay.
but it was always on Saturday at Riverside.
Riverside, which is over West Memphis,
West
Arkansas,
Memphis,
right
yeah.
over the Mississippi. Yeah.
But there was a lot of tracks around here within an hour, in Mississippi and over in Arkansas, 2 hours, there was twice as many tracks. There was just like racetracks everywhere.
Yeah, so at that time, late '60s or through the '60s and early '70s, I grew up. My stepfather had USAC sprint cars, and to me, the center of the universe was the USAC sprint car tour of the Midwest. I had no idea that this Memphis area was such a hotbed for sprint car racing. I never really knew, but it really was back then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the greats, Hooker Hood ran here. The Hodnets came out of here. Bobby Davis Sr. and Jr.
Yep.
I mean, this is just an incredible area for sprint car racing. And Riverside Speedway, they still run there, don't they?
Still around there.
Yeah. Do you ever just go and hang out and watch, or you don't do that? If you're not racing, you're not at the thing.
If I'm not involved, sometimes people call me and want some help or something, and I
you'll
might
go
go over. But I'm just not a real good one to be there, not
be
any
running.
involvement so far. Just to watch a race, because I've seen so many. It's like I don't, let's go there, and it's like
You don't need that fix.
I don't need all. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm not involved, it's hard to get me there.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that. Did you get along well with your dad?
Yeah. I mean, there might be 2 or 3 things we maybe disagreed, but then we still work together.
Sure. Is there any lessons that come to mind that he taught you, even if it's right and wrong?
It's just, you got to work for what you want. Yeah, nobody's really going to hand it to you.
Yeah.
You race people the way they race you. You try to race somebody clean, but there's points. He said, some guys don't want to show any respect. So it's like, if they can kind of push you out of the way, you should be able to, it's fair for you to push them out of the way.
Fair game.
Fair game. So
Yeah.
he said if they see they can just push you out of the way, they'll do it every time.
Sure. If you train them that way.
Yeah. It's not like really crashing anybody, but it's just like not giving them where they have to make a decision.
Sure.
That when they put like me in a decision, it's like either you stop or you crash. And it's like, well, if I'm crashed, I have to fix it. And then the paycheck at the end of the night's not as good either. So you learn to, different things. And some guys race different than others. I mean, some guys you've been able to race with and never have problems. You just race and you race tight, but you give each other room.
Sure.
That was one thing, like from the other stuff we talked about, just slowing everything down. I think I could get in, through, and out of holes and make decisions so much better than somebody that was just like got a death grip on the wheel. Yeah, you have to take some chances, but it's just the people that can make more of the right decisions. Are the ones that can come out at the end. And You know, when I started, there was still a lot of people that would be in crashes and they didn't survive. And you learn to live with, I don't know if you live with it, but it was something that happened. But
Does that always give you pause? I mean, that's, you know, I grew up in racing, but what I learned in the early days of the USAC sprint car, well, or not early, but 60s and 70s, and I saw men die, and watching that as a little boy, I told myself I would never do that, you know? I mean, didn't that give you, and you come from that era, did that not give you pause that you can really skin your ass in one of these things?
well, it's the thing that you pretty much say, well, it probably won't happen to me.
Oh yeah, the old not gonna happen to me thing.
But the deal is that I wanted to learn from everything that was wrong, or what happened, or how somebody got hurt, or whatever, and learn how to make it to where I didn't get hurt. A lot of things I've done with the cars and how they're built and the seats and everything, it's like there's not a lot of people getting hurt near as much.
And the cars are so much safer now.
Mm-hmm.
But you come from that era when they weren't. I mean, you come from the era when the drivers would, as the old saying goes, fall out of the seat. You didn't have a headrest to put your head against. You know, you had to hold your head up, and you know, and you know, you literally held yourself up by holding onto the steering wheel. And you, oh, by the way, you had to steer too. You know, I mean, that whole era was just bizarre.
Yeah, but it was just like
no head and neck cons or anything.
Right, but we just evolved from all that. You know, you'd see where the cars would break, where they would fail, what happened in a wreck, what happened to the seat. You know, just go look, and it's like, okay, well,
build a better seat.
Yeah, build a better car.
Build a better car.
There's a lot of things I've done with the building to the cars that are so much different than they were when I started. A lot of people, well, how do you, well, you can't do all that. It's like just things come to me, you know, because that's what my dad, he worked for a construction company, a superintendent, and they built big commercial buildings. He was all the time taking on little jobs, and I'd have to come home, you know, after school and build all these parts, and then he'd weld them all together.
So that was your first job in life, was building
really
parts
young.
and working on your dad's car.
Yeah, you know, and he said, well, I got just enough material to do this, so you have to do what you got to think. You can't just start chopping stuff up.
Because I can't replace that part. We got to use that much steel.
That steel you don't have anymore. He'd have to go get more. But so it's like, there was a lot of things that he kind of like helped me start, but then let me figure it out at the same time.
You had to teach yourself not to make mistakes, because if you make a mistake, you know, you don't have enough parts.
Yeah.
Basically.
And then it kind of grew into, okay, well, let's make something better, or let's do something different.
So you were innovating right from the start.
Yeah.
Even from a boy on. In fact, in that era, I know because I came up on it, women and children are not allowed in the pits. That's the way I know they are now, but they weren't then. And did you not get some sort of special provision, like when you were, I don't know, 12 or 13, that because you were the only guy with your dad to work on the car, that they did let you into the pits when everyone else couldn't as a child?
Yeah.
How old were
you? 12.
12, okay.
So there was times that, you know, he would pull his car with just our personal car. Well, he'd put a deal on there, and then we would, you know, use that to, like a push truck, but it was a push car. And there's a lot of people coming, it's like, I'd push him off, and then, you know, I'd have to drive around and go back and park. You know, 12 years old, can't see anybody in there. See them looking up and doing it. I got a lot of experience just driving cars and
pushing them around the pits and in and off the track, and
then going back and parking.
I mean, you really learned this industry from the ground up. It's amazing. And you were always more, I mean, you're not that tall. Is there anything to having an advantage as a smaller guy in the cockpit, or do you have to weigh so much anyway with the driver? It doesn't matter. Kind of like a horse jockey or something. You know, there's no advantage to that.
I mean, that's part of what's made my career so long. It's like I'm probably the perfect size.
Sure.
And you know, I'm not just a little scrawny kind of guy. I'm little on the chunky side, you know, like
Solid.
my neck's big. I don't have a
Solid.
long neck, and just, you know, I can fit in there and have plenty of room.
Whether it was a midget or a sprint car. Or...
Yep. So there's always going to be a perfect size for someone to do a certain thing, and it's like, well, I couldn't be a jockey because I'm too heavy.
Sprint
race car,
perfect.
just right, because I don't sit, you know, way up. I'm not tall from my waist up.
Your stature is perfect for the industry. Did you have any other heroes outside of your dad growing up as a kid?
Well, it was different. You didn't hear about a lot of things other than through, you know, a paper or something.
Sure.
And so...
You didn't have a cell phone in 1972, did you?
No.
Not even the flip kind, huh?
No.
Okay.
No, you were lucky to have one in the house that worked.
Oh, man. I mean, I can just see you as a little kid at the track, and you know, you were your dad's right-hand man as a 12-year-old boy. But it's something, they didn't have to pull you to the track, right? You didn't like, oh, we got to go to the racetrack. You wanted to be there.
Yeah,
there's nowhere else you wanted to be.
But yeah, that was it.
That was it. Yeah. You had the perfect upbringing for the career that would eventually come. Well, so was that your first ever job, you know, where you were, I don't know, you worked on your dad's cars, you know, was that?
Yeah, we were building whatever we were building, and I'm like cutting it all out, laying it all out.
Sure.
Doing those things. I mean, and they would bring things on the job that would break, like they'd have a big air compressor and
you'd have to
run. Well, here,
fix it.
And
so
no
you kind
instructions.
of no instructions. You had in many ways, you taught yourself how to manufacture, fix, machine things, right? I mean, you had to self-taught, which I think is the best way to teach oneself.
Yeah.
You make a mistake and you don't make it again.
Right. Yeah, you learn. You try not to make the mistake in the beginning, but you learn how to problem solve, how to think out of the box, you know, make it happen. So there's a lot of things, and people come up, well, we've got this problem, and like, I got the fix right there.
So your first ever ride in a sprint car or a race car, was it a sprint car or was it something else, like them old coupes, them old homemade super modifieds, whatever they were?
Well, it was kind of a coupe, I guess. You know, the first one that I had, I think it was a 23 or something, 24 T-model body on it.
1923, 24 T-model body on it?
Yeah.
That was your first car?
Mm-hmm.
Would that have been Riverside Speedway?
Yes.
How old were you when you drove for the first time?
I was 15.
You didn't have a driver's license?
No, there was somebody would take my car to the track.
You know, that's interesting. You were from your era, you were probably the youngest kid in a race car. If you think about it, I mean, you know, now kids coming up today, they're racing quarter midgets at 3 years old, you know, and they progress on from there, and that's why they're as good as they are. You didn't have that opportunity back then. You weren't racing when you were in 3 and 4, but you were racing a full-bodied race car at the track at 15. Mm-hmm. So for that era, you had a really nice jump on the competition.
Yeah. Yeah, then I was able to win the third night out. So that
really? Third night out?
Yeah.
Riverside?
Mm-hmm.
Riverside Speedway.
Well,
I'd like to see that place.
Well, actually, we went down it was in Greenville, Mississippi.
Greenville, Mississippi. Okay.
Yeah. And then I came back and won more races than anyone that year.
I mean, all these decades, you're still going. Have you ever been hurt in a race car? I mean, if not, how did you go all these decades without getting hurt somewhere along the way? I mean,
I've been pretty fortunate. I mean, I broke my wrist one time in a non-wing car, and you know, that was because the seat opened up and it took my arm off. There was no arm guard and my wrist.
No armor. Is that before arm restraints?
Yeah, and it hit the Nerf bar. Like
okay.
Right there.
Oh, ow!
I broke it, but that's pretty good. Just that, and I blew out my PCL once.
PCL?
Yeah, the back side of my knee.
Oh, okay.
The ligaments there.
In a flip or crash or?
Yeah, well, it was just, you know, I'm on the brakes and it hit on the nose, and so that was all tensed, and it
kind of a dead stop when it landed.
Yeah. So,
How did you eventually land with the World of Outlaws? How'd you get there?
well, it was just before that. Ted Johnson had did some races and paid some of us to go to these places and do things. So, I was able to be at the first one, but the first year I only ran 10 events because the car I was driving, they couldn't do all that traveling.
Yeah. So you picked up I know the World of Outlaw had I think their first full season in 79, 78, 79, somewhere in there. And you came along 81-ish?
81 was my first year.
And then you won the championship that year.
Yeah, we ran 134 nights.
I
Some
can't
of them
imagine
weren't
that.
outlaw stuff, but, and I won 56 of them.
I don't know how you guys did that. That seems superhuman to me, to go 130 plus races in a year. And it wasn't like, I guess somebody could do that 1 or 2 years, but you guys did it for
A while.
decades. Yeah. And you did it in a way that a lot of guys didn't. Coming back to Steve Kinzer had Carl Kinzer to lean on.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Kinzer worked on that car. If the motor was getting swapped in the Motel 8 parking lot, it was Carl Kinzer out there doing it. You had to operate as not only race car driver Sammy Swindell, but you had to be your own Carl Kinzer. So you had two elements going there, and at times your own car owner too, acting essentially as Carl Kinzer, to use the example, and yourself, and to go that many years doing it, racing more than 100 times a year. How did you not completely wear yourself out? I don't get it.
It's just what I did. I don't.
You didn't think about it like I am.
No. It was just, well, this is what I want to do. This is what the next step. So you just did it.
Were you somewhat misunderstood for your career over the World of Outlaw Tour? Because